Hello, friends. Think about your morning routine. Maybe you're out in the driveway in a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio, getting ready to mow the lawn. Or perhaps you're standing at the grill on a Sunday afternoon, flipping burgers for the grandkids while the pregame show plays in the background. You feel that little prickle in your big toe? A tiny sizzle, like a low-voltage wire touching your skin. You rub your foot, pull on a thicker pair of wool socks and tell yourself, it's just the cold, or I'm just getting older. My circulation isn't what it used to be. You dismiss it. You go back to your life. But friends, what if I told you that this completely normal habit is actually a hidden ticking time bomb in your body? A bomb that could strip away your independence and land you in a nursing home faster than you can imagine. I am not trying to scare you. I am trying to wake you up. Listen to me closely. This isn't just wear and tear. Inside your body, a silent disaster is unfolding. Imagine your nerves are like the high-end copper wiring in your home, protected by a thick plastic insulation called myelin. When your blood sugar fluctuates, even if your doctor says you're just pre-diabetic, that excess sugar turns your blood into a thick, abrasive sludge. It's like pouring sand into a fine V8 engine. It begins to scrape and dissolve that insulation. Or perhaps because you're over 60, your stomach isn't producing enough acid to absorb vitamin B12. Without that B12, your body can't repair the wires. The insulation thins, the wires short-circuit, and that tingle is the sound of your internal electrical system failing. Take Mary, a retired school teacher from Sarasota, Florida. She loved her gardening. She felt the numbness, but thought it was just her old lady feet. She didn't realize she was losing protective sensation. One afternoon, she stepped on a small pebble in her garden. She didn't feel a thing. For 3 days, that pebble ground into her flesh like a slow-motion drill. By the time she saw the redness creeping up her ankle, the infection was rampant. The panic of the 911 call, the flashing lights, the terrifying cost of the vascular surgery, it all led to a nightmare scenario. The doctor told her she was weeks away from losing the foot. The fear of being a burden to her kids, of having them have to wipe her mouth in an assisted living facility, it became her daily reality. In today's video, I am going to blow the whistle on this hidden danger. There is a lot of life-saving information today, so please stick with me until the very end. Before we dive into the dark truth, if you truly care about your health and maintaining your independence for years to come, please hit that subscribe button down below and turn on the notification bell. And if you find today's video helpful, type the words "Walk in Strength" in the comments section below to support our community. Friends, I want you to imagine a beautiful, sunny Tuesday morning in Sarasota, Florida. Robert, a 72-year-old retired history teacher, is standing on the third tee box of his favorite local golf course. He spent 30 years in the classroom, and now he's finally living the American dream. He's active, he's vibrant, he's got his daily routine of walking the neighborhood and enjoying a classic American BBQ with his grandkids on the weekends. But lately, Robert noticed something. It was just a tiny, faint tingling in his big toe, almost like a small hum or a stray hair brushing against his skin.
He didn't think much of it.
He actually went out and bought a pair of those expensive, thick cushioned socks, thinking his new golf spikes were just a bit too tight. He told his wife, "It's just part of getting older, honey. No big deal." Listen to me closely, because this is where the tragedy begins. Robert didn't realize that those minor tingles were actually a 911 siren screaming from his nervous system. Fast forward 3 weeks. It's 2 a.m. Robert wakes up to get a glass of water. He swings his legs off the bed, his feet hit the plush carpet. But here's the terrifying part, he can't feel the floor. His brain is sending the signal to stand, but his feet are sending back nothing. Silence. He takes one step, his balance vanishes because he has no sensory anchor to the earth, and he crashes down. He hits the nightstand, then the floor. The pain in his hip is white hot, but the numbness in his feet is what truly chills his blood. His wife is panicking, dialing 911. As the sirens echo through the quiet Florida suburbs, Robert isn't just thinking about the pain. He's thinking about the mortgage. He's thinking about the thousands of dollars in Medicare gaps that are about to swallow his savings. He's looking at his wife and thinking, is this it? Is this the moment I become a burden? Am I going to end up in one of those cold, sterile nursing homes where they decide when I eat and when I sleep? Friends, I am not fear-mongering. This is the reality for thousands of Americans who dismiss that minor tingling. When Robert got to the ER, the news was a gut punch. It wasn't his shoes. It wasn't just aging. It was a systemic breakdown of his very wiring. I want to take you inside the body now, in slow motion, to understand exactly what was happening to Robert and what might be happening to you right now as you watch this. Think of your nerves like high-performance copper wiring in a classic American V8 engine. For that engine to roar, for your muscles to move, and for your brain to know where your feet are, those wires must be perfectly insulated. That insulation is a fatty substance called myelin. Now imagine that insulation starting to crack. Imagine it becoming brittle, like an old garden hose left out in the desert sun. In Robert's case, his body was suffering from a condition called atrophic gastritis. You see, as we age, our stomach lining can thin out. It stops producing enough stomach acid and a very special protein called intrinsic factor. Without that protein, your body cannot absorb vitamin B12 from your food, no matter how many steaks or eggs you eat. Now let's look at the slow-motion destruction. When your B12 levels crater, the production of that insulation, the myelin, stops dead in its tracks. Your body starts to scavenge what's left. It's like a house where the owner is so desperate for warmth that they start pulling the wooden beams out of the walls to burn in the fireplace. Step by step, the protective coating on your peripheral nerves, the ones furthest from your heart down in your toes, begins to dissolve. Without that coating, the electrical signals from your brain don't just travel anymore, they leak. They short-circuit. It's like pouring water onto a live circuit board. That tingling Robert felt? That wasn't just a sensation. That was the sound of his nerves, misfiring, sparking, and dying. Every time he felt that pins and needles sensation, a few more nerve fibers were being permanently silenced. The technical term is demyelination, but you can think of it as your internal wiring turning into rusted, frayed junk. Does this sound familiar? Have you felt that buzz? Because if you ignore it, the next stage is what the doctors call axonal degeneration. This is the point of no return. Once the protective coating is gone, the acid of chronic inflammation starts eating the actual copper wire, the nerve itself. When that nerve dies, it doesn't come back. It's gone. Think about the stakes here. Robert was terrified of the medical bills, and he had every right to be. A single fall leading to a hip fracture can cost over $40,000 in the first year alone. But the financial bankruptcy is nothing compared to the mobility bankruptcy. When you lose the sensation in your feet, you lose your independence. You lose the ability to drive your car because you can't feel the brake pedal. You lose the ability to walk your daughter down the aisle or play catch with your grandson because your brain can no longer find your feet in space. Robert's doctor sat him down and gave him a stern warning that should haunt us all. He said, "Robert, if we hadn't caught this B12 deficiency today, you wouldn't just be looking at a hip bruise. You'd be looking at a wheelchair and a one-way ticket to assisted living. Because once those nerves are dead, you get what we call silent injuries. You could step on a rusted nail or develop a blister from those thick socks you bought and you wouldn't feel a thing. That blister turns into an ulcer. That ulcer turns into an infection that reaches the bone. And in this country, every year, tens of thousands of seniors lose their toes, their feet, or their entire legs to amputations that started with a minor tingle they thought was just aging. Friends, your body is a masterpiece, but it's also a ticking time bomb if you don't respect the signals. Robert's standard American diet couldn't save him because his plumbing, his digestive tract, was broken. He was starving for nutrients in a land of plenty. Don't let your retirement savings be drained by a preventable tragedy. Don't let your kids have to move you into a facility because you can no longer trust your own legs to hold you up. When your toes tingle, it's not a nuisance. It's a crisis. It is your body's last-ditch effort to tell you that your insulation is melting away, that your engine is about to seize up, and that your independence is hanging by a very thin, very frayed thread. Listen to your body, because once the silence sets in, it's often too late to turn the volume back up. Friends, if you think that little prickle in your toes is just a sign of getting older, or that you just need to buy a wider pair of shoes, I need you to stop what you're doing and listen to me right now. Because that minor tingling is actually your body's final desperate alarm bell. It's the sound of your independence screaming for help before the lights go out forever. I want to tell you about Sarah. Sarah is 54 years old, a hard-working office manager in Columbus, Ohio. Maybe she sounds a lot like you. She's got a high-stress job, a long commute through those Ohio winters, and like so many of us, she's focused on her 401k, her kids, and getting through the work week. Sarah had been told by her doctor that her A1C, that's your average blood sugar, was 5.9%. Now, to most people, that sounds like a pass. Her doctor called it borderline. Sarah thought, okay, I'll cut back on the donuts. And then she went right back to her busy life, sitting at her desk for 8 hours a day, grabbing convenience food on the way home, and watching football on the weekends. But while Sarah was worrying about her spreadsheets and her retirement fund, something horrifying was happening inside her legs. Every morning, on that long drive to the office, she'd feel it. A little pins and needles sensation in her toes. She'd wiggle them, think her shoes were too tight, or blame it on poor circulation from sitting too long. She ignored it for 6 months. Listen to me closely, she thought she was just getting older. Then came her niece's wedding, a beautiful day. Sarah put on a pair of classic heels, danced, laughed, and walked around greeting family for hours. She felt a little rubbing on her heel, but here's the terrifying part. She didn't feel any pain, because the nerves in her feet were already dying. She had lost what we doctors call protective sensation. She was literally walking on a wound and her brain had no idea. By the time she got home and peeled off those shoes, her sock was soaked in blood. A small blister had turned into a deep, jagged, purple-rimmed ulcer. Within 48 hours, Sarah was in the emergency room with a 102-degree fever, shivering uncontrollably as a systemic infection raced through her bloodstream. She sat in that ER bed, the harsh fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and she wasn't thinking about the wedding anymore. She was thinking about her high-deductible health plan. She was calculating the cost of a hospital stay against her 401k. She was looking at the surgeon's face and seeing the very real possibility that she might leave that hospital with one less limb. She was terrified that she'd end up in a nursing home, relying on her children to wipe her mouth and push her wheelchair. Does this sound familiar? Do you have that minor tingling? Because I am not fear-mongering when I tell you that Sarah's borderline blood sugar was actually a slow-motion wrecking ball. Let's look at the science of why this happens, and I want you to visualize this like a slow-motion movie. Inside your body, your nerves are like high-tech fiber optic cables. They have a core called the axon, which carries the electrical signal from your brain to your toes. Surrounding that core is a fatty insulation called the myelin sheath. Think of it like the rubber coating on a power cord in your house. When your blood sugar stays even slightly elevated, that borderline 5.9% Sarah had, your blood isn't the smooth, life-giving liquid it's supposed to be. It becomes more like a thick, sugary sludge. As this sludge moves through the tiny, microscopic capillaries that feed your nerves, it causes a catastrophic breakdown. Imagine those sugar molecules as tiny, jagged shards of glass. In slow motion, these shards scrape against the delicate walls of the blood vessels. This creates inflammation, and suddenly the oxygen can't get through. Your nerves start to starve. They are literally gasping for air. Just like we saw earlier with the heart, the first thing to go is the insulation. This is the process of demyelination. Imagine that rubber coating on your home's wiring starting to crack and flake off. When the insulation is gone, the electrical signals start to leak. They short-circuit. At pins and needles feeling you're dismissing? That's the spark of a short-circuiting nerve. It's your body's electrical system failing in real time. It gets worse. Once the insulation is gone, the sugar shards start attacking the axon itself, the core of the wire. This is axonal degeneration. It's not just a glitch anymore, the wire is being cut. Step by step, the nerve fiber dies. And once a peripheral nerve fiber dies, it doesn't just grow back like a fingernail. It's gone. And for many of you watching, it's not just the sugar. As we get older, our stomachs produce less gastric acid. This means your body can't absorb vitamin B12 from your food. B12 is the mechanic that repairs your nerve insulation. Without it, the rust of everyday life eats through your nerves twice as fast. You're running a high-performance V8 engine with no oil and a fuel line full of sugar. It is a ticking time bomb. Friends, when Sarah lost that protective sensation, she lost her body's ability to tell her she was in danger. When your nerves die, the pain goes away. And that silence is the most dangerous thing of all. Because when you stop feeling the tingling, it doesn't mean you're getting better. It means the nerve is dead. It means you could step on a tack, develop an infection, and not know it until your foot turns black, and the doctors start talking about amputation to save your life. Think about the cost. Not just the medical bills that can drain a lifetime of savings in a single month of intensive care, but the cost of your freedom, the cost of never being able to drive your car again, or never being able to walk your granddaughter down the aisle. You won't believe how many people I see who tell me, "I wish I had taken that borderline number seriously." Don't be like Sarah waiting for a fever and a surgeon to tell you that your life as an independent adult is over. That tingling is a gift. It's a warning. If you feel it, your nerves are still alive enough to complain. You have a window of opportunity to stop the glass shards from cutting your lifeline. But that window is closing a little more every single day you ignore it. Listen to me closely. Your 401k won't matter if you can't walk across your own living room. Your independence is hanging by a very thin, very frayed thread. Do not let it snap. Take the minor signs seriously today, or you will be forced to take the major consequences seriously tomorrow. Your independence is hanging by a very thin, very frayed thread. Do not let it snap. Take the minor signs seriously today, or you will be forced to take the major consequences seriously tomorrow. Friends, I want you to listen to me very closely right now, because what I'm about to tell you is the difference between spending your golden years playing with your grandkids in the backyard or spending them trapped in a motorized chair, watching the world go by from a plexiglass window in a nursing home. Does that sound harsh? I am not fear-mongering. I'm telling you the clinical reality that thousands of Americans face every single day, because they thought they were tough. Take Jim, for example. Jim is 61 years old, living just outside of Houston, Texas. He's a construction foreman, a man's man. He spent 40 years on his feet, overseeing builds, walking through dirt and rebar, and he's the kind of guy who thinks a doctor's visit is a waste of a good Saturday. He loves his life. He loves firing up the grill for a Texas-sized BBQ. He loves his Ford F-150, and he's worked his tail off to make sure his 401k is sitting pretty for retirement. But Jim started noticing something. It started as a tiny, almost insignificant tingling in his big toe. He figured it was just his work boots getting old. He thought, Maybe I'll just buy some thicker socks or some of those gel inserts from the drugstore. But then the tingling turned into a dead feeling, like his feet were made of wood. One Friday night after a long week on the job site, Jim sat down in his recliner and his feet felt ice cold. He couldn't get them warm, so he did what many of us do. He grabbed an electric heating pad, wrapped it around his feet, and turned it all the way up to high. He sat there watching the football game, waiting to feel that warmth seep into his bones. But he felt nothing. He thought the pad was broken. He fell asleep in that chair, and when he woke up 4 hours later, he smelled something sweet and sickly. Friends, because Jim had lost the protective sensation in his feet, he didn't realize that heating pad was malfunctioning. It had reached nearly 140 degrees. Jim had sustained deep second-degree burns across the entire ball of his left foot, and he didn't feel a single second of it. He didn't feel his skin blistering. He didn't feel his flesh literally cooking. 3 days later, his foot was the color of a bruised plum and swollen like a football. When his wife finally forced him into the ER, the doctors didn't talk about bandages. They talked about sepsis. They talked about bone infections. They talked about the very real possibility that Jim might never walk again. I want you to understand the slow-motion disaster happening inside a body like Jim's, because it might be happening inside yours right now. When your blood sugar fluctuates, even if you've been told you're just pre-diabetic, your blood isn't the life-giving fluid it's supposed to be. It becomes like thick, gritty sludge. Imagine pouring corn syrup into the fuel lines of a precision-engineered V8 engine. What happens? The fuel lines clog. The engine stutters. In your body, those fuel lines are your capillaries, the tiniest blood vessels that feed your nerves. When that sugar-thickened blood tries to force its way through those microscopic tubes, it acts like liquid sandpaper. It scours the delicate inner lining of the vessels. Over time, those vessels become scarred and narrowed.
They begin to leak.
Now, your nerves, specifically the long nerves that go all the way down to your toes, are being starved of oxygen. Think of your nerves like a high-voltage power cable. That cable is wrapped in a thick, fatty insulation called the myelin sheath. This sheath is what allows electrical signals to zip from your brain to your feet at hundreds of miles per hour. But when those blood vessels fail, the myelin sheath begins to dissolve. It's like acid dripping onto a wire. Step by step, the insulation thins. It frays. The electrical signal starts to leak out. This is why you feel that tingling. That pins and needles sensation isn't just a nuisance, it is the literal sound of your nervous system short-circuiting. As the damage progresses, we move from short-circuiting to total blackout. This is called demyelination. Without that fatty coating, the nerve fiber itself, the axon, starts to wither and die. It's like a garden hose being stepped on until the grass at the end turns brown and brittle. Once that axon dies, the connection is gone. Your brain sends a signal to move your toe, but the wire is cut. The foot sends a signal that it's being burned by a heating pad, but the message never reaches the brain. This is the loss of protective sensation, or LOPS. It is the final warning before catastrophe. In Jim's case, the lack of blood flow meant his body couldn't fight the infection from the burn. The bacteria didn't just stay on the skin, they migrated deep into the tissue, eventually reaching the bone. This is called osteomyelitis. When bacteria hit the bone, it's like rot hitting the foundation of a house. It is incredibly difficult to treat, often requiring weeks of IV antibiotics that cost thousands of dollars a day. Think about the panic Jim felt sitting in that hospital bed. He wasn't just worried about his foot. He was looking at the bill. He was looking at his insurance deductible. He was terrified that if he lost his foot, he'd lose his job. And if he lost his job, he'd lose his disability eligibility. This is how medical bankruptcy starts in America. One minor tingle leads to a $150,000 hospital stay that wipes out the 401k you spent 40 years building. And let's be honest about the ultimate fear. If Jim loses that leg, he can't live in his two-story house anymore. He can't drive his truck. He becomes a burden. He has to rely on his kids to help him get to the bathroom. He has to face the reality of an assisted living facility, a place that smells like bleach and loneliness, where his independence goes to die. Listen to me closely. Your body is giving you a gift right now. That tingling, that numbness, that dead feeling in your toes, that is your body's emergency siren. It is telling you that your nerves are being stripped of their insulation. It is telling you that your blood has turned into sludge and is suffocating your extremities. Do not be like Jim. Do not wait for the big event. Do not wait for the burn, the ulcer, or the infection that won't heal. When you lose the ability to feel your feet, you lose your ability to navigate the world. You lose your freedom. I want you to imagine a ticking time bomb buried in your shoe. Every day you ignore that numbness, you're letting the timer get closer to zero. We are talking about the permanent destruction of your cells. We are talking about axonal degeneration that once it reaches a certain point is irreversible. You cannot regrow a dead nerve like you regrow a fingernail. Once it is gone, that part of your body is effectively dead while you're still alive. Does this sound familiar? Are you sitting there right now, rubbing your feet, trying to wake them up? Are you buying wider shoes because your feet feel swollen even though they look normal? Friends, stop making excuses. That rust in your vascular system is spreading. The clogged plumbing in your legs is reaching a breaking point. You worked too hard for your retirement to spend it in a hospital gown? You've put too many miles on those feet to let them fail you now. We are going to talk about how to flush that sludge out of your system, how to protect that myelin sheath before it disappears forever, and how to keep your independence firmly under your own control. Because the alternative, relying on a stranger to wipe your mouth and move your legs, is a price no American should have to pay. Now let's get into the life-saving rules you must follow starting today. Because the alternative, relying on a stranger to wipe your mouth and move your legs, is a price no American should have to pay. Now, let's get into the life-saving rules you must follow starting today. Friends, listen to me very closely. What happened to Robert, Sarah, and Jim wasn't bad luck. It wasn't just a part of getting older, like a gray hair or a wrinkle. It was a biological breakdown that happened because they didn't have the tools I'm about to give you. These rules don't cost a dime, they don't require a prescription, and they can be the difference between walking your granddaughter down the aisle or watching her from a motorized wheelchair. The first life-saving rule is what I call the 5-minute mirror inspection. Now, you might think you know what your feet look like, but if you have even a hint of tingling, your brain is lying to you. In a healthy body, your nerves act like high-speed fiber optic cables, sending instant messages to your brain the moment a pebble gets in your shoe or a sock bunching up starts to chafe. But when those nerves begin to die, a process we call demyelination, it's like the insulation on an electrical wire is being chewed away by rats. The signal doesn't get through. So here is what you must do every single night before you get into bed. Sit on the edge of your tub or your bed and use a hand mirror to look at the soles of your feet. I want you to look between every single toe. Why? Because a tiny crack between your toes, if left unseen, becomes a gateway. Imagine your blood sugar is slightly high, like Sarah's was in Ohio. That extra sugar makes your blood thick and syrupy. It's no longer the life-giving fluid it should be. It's now a corrosive sludge that's actually feeding the bacteria in that tiny crack. Without you feeling a thing, that bacteria begins to eat its way through the dermis, into the muscle, and eventually into the bone. By the time you see redness on the top of your foot, it's often too late to save the limb. Do not trust your feelings. Trust your eyes. If you see a red spot, a blister, or even a dry patch that looks like a scale, you treat it as a 5-alarm fire. The second rule is the lukewarm water protocol. This is the rule that could have saved Jim in Houston from those horrific second-degree burns. When your nerves are damaged, your ability to perceive temperature is the first thing to go. Your feet might feel cold to the touch, so your instinct is to turn up the heat. You go for the heating pad, the electric blanket, or you turn the bathtub faucet all the way to the red. But listen to the physiology of what happens next. Because your nerves are frayed, your brain thinks the water is just comfortably warm. In reality, that water is 130 degrees. As you soak your feet, the heat is literally cooking the protein in your skin cells, just like an egg white turning solid in a frying pan. Because there is no pain signal, your body doesn't trigger the inflammatory response to protect you. You're sitting there watching the evening news while your tissue is being destroyed. From this moment forward, you are never ever allowed to test water temperature with your feet or your hands. You must use your elbow. The skin on your elbow is much more sensitive to the true thermal reality. If it feels even slightly hot to your elbow, it is a scalding danger to your feet. And for heaven's sake, throw away the heating pads. If your feet are cold, use loose-fitting wool socks. Never apply direct heat to a limb that has even a hint of numbness. You're playing with a ticking time bomb if you do. The third rule is the no white nutritional lockdown. I know we love our white bread, our pasta, and our potatoes at the Sunday barbecue. But I want you to visualize what that starch is doing to your vascular system. When you eat highly processed carbohydrates, your blood sugar doesn't just rise, it spikes. Think of these sugar molecules as microscopic shards of glass rushing through your bloodstream at high pressure. As they fly through those tiny microscopic vessels that feed your nerves, the vasa nervorum, they are literally scratching and scarring the delicate lining. This leads to a clogged plumbing effect. The nerves in your toes are the furthest away from your heart. They are the end of the line. When those tiny pipes get scarred and clogged by sugar shards, the nerve starts to starve. It's gasping for oxygen. That tingling you feel, that is the nerve screaming as it begins to wither and die. To stop this, you have to cut the white out of your life. No white bread, no white rice, no white flour, and no white sugar. Switch to leafy greens and high-quality proteins. And specifically for my friends over 60, like Robert in Florida, you need to check your B12 levels. As we age, our stomach acid weakens and we can't absorb the B12 from our food anymore. Without B12, your body cannot maintain the myelin sheath, the protective coating on your nerves. It's like trying to run a V8 engine without any oil. Eventually, the metal is going to grind against metal until the whole thing seizes up. Ask your doctor for a B12 methylcobalamin supplement. It's cheap, it's over the counter, and it can literally help repair the wiring in your legs before the damage becomes irreversible. Does this sound familiar to you? Are you thinking, but I only have a little tingling when I wake up? Friends, please hear me. That little tingling is the first tremor before the earthquake. If you ignore it, you aren't just risking a sore foot. You're risking the loss of your driver's license because you can't feel the brake pedal. You're risking a fall down the stairs that results in a broken hip, which for many seniors is the beginning of the end. I am not fear-mongering when I tell you that medical bankruptcy is the leading cause of seniors losing their homes in this country. 1 week in the ICU for a systemic infection from a foot ulcer can wipe out a 401k faster than any stock market crash. You've worked your whole life to enjoy your retirement, to play with your grandkids, to travel. Don't let a minor tingle rob you of everything you've built. Start the mirror checks tonight. Use your elbow to test the water. Cut out the processed sugars that are shredding your nerves from the inside out. Your independence is your most valuable asset. Protect it with everything you've got. I believe in you, and I know you can take control of your health today. Keep walking, keep moving, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, friends, that's all for today's topic. Before we go, let's do a quick recap of the most important life-saving takeaways. Please etch these into your memory. Number 1. That tingling or numbness in your toes is a flashing red light on your health dashboard. It means your nerve insulation is being eaten away by glucose or a lack of B12. Number 2. Check your A1C and B12 levels immediately because even borderline numbers can cause irreversible demyelination and axonal degeneration. Number 3. Ignoring these signs leads to a loss of protective sensation, meaning a simple blister can turn into a life-threatening ulcer, amputation, and the loss of your mobility forever. Don't let a thicker pair of socks be the reason you end up in a nursing home. My friends, true health isn't an unreachable goal. It's hidden in the tiny choices we make every single day. I hope today's guide truly hits home for you. If you found this helpful, please don't be stingy. Give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with your family and friends. Your single share might literally save a life and keep a family whole. I'll see you in the next video.